What the HVAC industry would rather you not know is this. The most common reason an air conditioner stops cooling has nothing to do with refrigerant and nothing that requires an expensive service call. I've seen this play out hundreds of times. A homeowner calls a technician, pays a couple $100 for the visit, and finds out the problem was a clogged filter or a trip breaker. Problems that any careful person could have handled themselves in about 20 minutes. The industry is not built to tell you that. Service calls are how the money gets made. I want to be fair. There are situations that genuinely need a professional. I'll tell you plainly when those come up. But I've watched folks get talked into refrigerant recharges, coil cleanings, and full system replacements when the real issue was something they could have fixed for free or for under $20. That burns me up, and it's exactly why I made this video. The myth I hear most often is that a warm house automatically means low refrigerant. That's the first thing the industry wants you to think, because refrigerant work is licensed, it costs real money, and it sends you straight to a technician's truck. The truth is, low refrigerant is one of the less common causes of an AC not cooling. And you should rule out at least 6 or 7 simpler things before you let anyone touch the refrigerant lines. The second myth is that AC problems are complicated. Most are not. They follow a logical order, and if you work through that order carefully, you will find the problem more often than not. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to do that. You'll know what to check first, what to check second, and what each symptom is trying to tell you. You'll walk away as the person in your household who actually understands the air conditioning system, and you will never again have to just trust whatever a salesman tells you about it. Before we get into the steps, I put together a full guide on this topic that goes deeper than we can go in one video. You'll find the ebook in the description below if you want to have something you can keep and refer back to the next time summer heats up. Now let's get into it. First, start with the thermostat. And I mean really start there, not as a formality. I know it sounds almost too obvious, but I've seen folks spend a full week being miserable in a hot house before they notice the thermostat had been bumped from cool to heat. It happens. Grandkids visit, somebody leans against the wall panel, and the settings get changed without anyone noticing. Here is what you are looking for. First, make sure the system is set to cool, not heat and not fan only. The fan only setting will blow air all day long and nothing will cool down. A lot of people feel that air moving and assume the system is working. It is not. Second, check the temperature setting itself. The thermostat needs to be set at least a few degrees below the current room temperature for the cooling cycle to actually kick on. If the room is 76 degrees and the thermostat is set to 70, the system may barely run at all. Third, if you have a digital thermostat, check the batteries. A weak battery can cause the thermostat to read the temperature incorrectly or fail to send a signal to the system at all. New batteries cost almost nothing and take 2 minutes to swap out. If you have an older manual thermostat and you're not sure it's reading accurately, hold a simple indoor thermometer right next to it and compare the two readings. If they're off by more than a couple of degrees, the thermostat may need replacing. A basic replacement unit runs somewhere in the range of $20 to $50, and most folks can install one themselves by following the included instructions. Next, and this is the big one, the air filter. Here is what I keep coming back to when I think about AC problems. A dirty air filter causes more cooling failures than almost anything else, and it is almost never the first thing a technician mentions on a service call, because there is no money in telling you to buy a $5 filter. The filter's job is to keep dust, pet hair, and airborne debris from getting pulled into the indoor unit. When it gets clogged, and it gets clogged faster than most people expect, the system cannot pull enough air across the evaporator coil. Without proper airflow, the coil cannot transfer heat the way it needs to. The result is a system that runs constantly, uses a lot of electricity, and still barely cools the house. How often should you change it? The honest answer depends on your home. If you have pets, if you live somewhere dusty, if the system runs heavily, you might need to change a standard 1-inch filter every 30 days. In a home without pets and with moderate use, every 60 to 90 days is a reasonable baseline. The rule I go by is simple. Hold the filter up to a light. If you cannot see light through it clearly, it is time to change it. One mistake I've watched folks make is buying the thickest, highest rated filter they can find, thinking that must be better. In some systems, it isn't. A very dense filter can restrict airflow too much for an older or lower powered unit. For most standard residential systems, a mid-range filter does the job well. Changing your filter consistently is the single highest return maintenance habit you can have. It costs almost nothing, and it protects everything else in the system. Now go outside and look at the condenser, the outdoor unit. This is where the heat your system pulled out of your house actually gets released into the outside air. If that unit cannot release heat effectively, the whole system backs up and cooling capacity drops off fast. Two things to check. First, airflow around the unit. The condenser needs clear space on all sides, generally at least a foot or two, preferably more. Over the years, shrubs grow in, lawn furniture gets stacked nearby, and sometimes a storage shed ends up right next to the unit. If vegetation or debris is blocking it, clear it back. Second, look at the condenser coils themselves. Those are the finned metal surfaces that wrap around the outside of the unit. Over time, they collect dust, cottonwood fluff, grass clippings, and airborne grime. When those coils are coated, they cannot release heat the way they are designed to. You can clean condenser coils yourself with a garden hose, gently, rinsing from the outside with low pressure, top to bottom. Coil cleaning spray is available at most hardware stores for around $10 to $15. Apply it, let it sit for a few minutes, then rinse it off. While you are out there, look up at the fan on top of the unit and make sure it is spinning when the system is running. If the fan motor has failed, the system will try to run but cannot release heat. That is a professional repair, but at least you will know what you are dealing with. Inside the house, walk through every room and look at the vents. This one catches people off guard because it happens so gradually. Over months and years, furniture gets rearranged, rugs get added, and vents get closed off in rooms nobody uses. And here is something that surprises most folks when they hear it. Closing vents in unused rooms does not save energy and does not help the system cool the rest of the house better. It actually increases pressure in the duct system, which stresses the equipment and can push conditioned air into the attic or wall cavities instead of into your living space. I know that feels counterintuitive, but the system was designed to move a specific volume of air, and blocking parts of that system creates problems. Open all the vents. Make sure nothing is sitting in front of them. Furniture, drapes, storage boxes. Also check the return air grills, the larger vents that pull air back into the system. Those are just as important as the supply vents. A blocked return is as damaging as a clogged filter. If some rooms in your house cool fine and others stay warm consistently, That is often a duct leakage issue. Ducts can develop gaps and cracks over time, especially in older homes, and a leaking duct is just pumping your cool air into the attic. That's a professional repair. But knowing about it lets you ask the right questions. If the system has been running but producing little or no cool air, go check the indoor unit for ice. The evaporator coil inside the air handler is where refrigerant absorbs heat from the air in your house. Under normal conditions, it stays cold but not frozen. When airflow is restricted or refrigerant is low, that coil can freeze solid, and a frozen coil cannot cool anything. It just sits there blocking airflow entirely. If you see ice on the coil or on the refrigerant lines running outside, shut the system off immediately. Running a frozen system strains the compressor, which is the most expensive component in the whole unit. Switch to fan-only mode and let the ice thaw naturally for a couple of hours. Then change your filter, let everything fully thaw, and restart the cooling mode. Watch what happens over the next day or two. If the coil freezes again, the cause is likely low refrigerant rather than an airflow problem, and that is when you bring in a professional. If you want the full step-by-step on diagnosing a frozen coil, including how to tell the difference between an airflow-caused freeze and a refrigerant-caused freeze, that is laid out in detail in the ebook linked in the description below. Now here is something the industry rarely explains in plain terms. One of the most common reasons a central AC system stops cooling in the middle of summer is a failed capacitor. A capacitor is a small cylindrical component inside the outdoor unit that gives the compressor and the fan motor the electrical jolt they need to start up. When it fails, the system either will not start at all or will struggle badly. The signs are specific. The outdoor unit hums, but the fan does not spin. The system starts and shuts off after a minute or two, or you hear a clicking noise as it tries and fails to get going. A replacement capacitor typically costs somewhere between $10 and $40 for the part. I'll be honest with you about the repair itself. If you are comfortable with basic electrical safety, replacing a capacitor is something many homeowners can handle. But capacitors store an electrical charge even when the power is off, and that charge needs to be safely discharged before you touch anything. If you are not confident about that step, call a professional. The service fee for a capacitor swap is generally on the lower end of repair costs, and that is money well spent. The reason I bring this up at all is simple. A technician who diagnoses a failed capacitor and recommends a full system replacement is not giving you good advice. Know your options before you agree to anything. Let me spend a moment on refrigerant, because this is where I see the most money wasted. Refrigerant is the substance that circulates through the system and moves heat from inside the house to outside. When everything is sealed properly, you never run out of it. It does not get used up the way fuel does. If the refrigerant level is low, it means there is a leak somewhere in the system. So when a technician says you just need a recharge and tops off the refrigerant without finding and fixing the leak, that is not a real repair. The refrigerant will leak out again, and you'll be paying for another recharge within a year or two. There are also additives sold at hardware stores that claim to stop refrigerant leaks or boost cooling performance. In my experience, most of these do nothing useful, and some can damage the seals and components inside the system. I would leave them on the shelf. Age also matters here. Older systems, particularly those running more than 15 or 20 years, may use refrigerant types that have been phased out and are expensive and harder to source. If you have an older system with a confirmed refrigerant leak, that is a reasonable moment to have an honest conversation with a qualified technician about whether repair or replacement makes better financial sense. If you have worked through everything above and the system still is not performing, consider whether the unit is simply the right size for the house. An undersized unit runs constantly and never quite gets the house to temperature on the hottest days. An oversized unit has its own problems. It cools the space too quickly, shuts off before it has had time to remove humidity properly, and leaves the house feeling clammy and uncomfortable. Properly sizing an AC system involves a heat load calculation based on square footage, insulation, window area, and local climate. If you have replaced a system in recent years and the house still does not feel right, it is worth asking whether that calculation was actually done before the equipment was selected. And if the system is more than 15 years old and has started needing recurring repairs, do the honest math. Add up what you have spent on repairs over the last few years and project what the next few might look like. At some point, that spending approaches the cost of a new system, especially one that comes with a meaningful improvement in energy efficiency. I am not saying run out and replace it. I am saying know where you stand before a technician makes that decision for you. Let me pull all of this together. If your AC is not cooling, start simple. Check the thermostat first. Settings, temperature, batteries. Then change the air filter if it is at all questionable. After that, go outside and look at the condenser. Clear away any debris, check that the fan is running, and rinse the coils if they look dirty. Walk through the house and open every vent and return grill. Let the system run with everything clear and see if that helps. If the system is running but nothing is improving, check the indoor unit for ice. If you find a frozen coil, shut down and let it thaw. If it freezes again after you change the filter, call a professional to check the refrigerant. If the system starts but immediately struggles or shuts off, look into the capacitor before agreeing to a larger repair. The honest truth here is straightforward. Most of what keeps an AC system running well is consistent, simple maintenance. A clean filter, clear space around the outdoor unit, vents left open. Those three things alone prevent the majority of cooling failures most homeowners ever face. There is no real money for anyone in teaching folks the simple thing that actually works. The money is in the service call and the upsell. You do not have to play that game. This week, check your filter and your thermostat settings. This month, spend 20 minutes outside clearing around the condenser and giving the coils a rinse if they need it. Those two steps will put you ahead of most homeowners. If you want to go deeper, the full diagnostic walkthrough, what to ask a technician so you do not get oversold, and how to think through the repair versus replace decision. The ebook in the description below covers all of it. That is a good resource to have on hand before you ever need to make a phone call. And if this video has been useful to you, I hope you will hit subscribe and join us here at Ask Big Jim. I read the comments and do my best to answer everyone who writes in. That community is one of my favorite parts of doing this. I want to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever dealt with an AC problem that turned out to be something far simpler than you expected? Or has a technician ever recommended a major repair that turned out to be unnecessary? Share your story below. Those conversations help everyone watching. Next time, we are going to talk about what to do when your furnace stops working in the fall. Many of the same diagnostic principles apply, and knowing what to check first will save you a lot of grief when the temperatures drop. I'm Big Jim. Thanks for watching. Stay cool out there.